Hi, welcome to the 11th video of A Drop of Excel, Vlookup and more. If you have come directly to this video and if you're only interested in learning Vlookup and Xlookup, no problem, continue. Otherwise, please go ahead and see the introduction first and all the 10 other videos and then come back to learn further. Moving on. Before we get into Vlookup, I know everybody feels that okay, Vlookup is the thing to learn and it's super complex. I just want to kind of, clear that myth. It's not really complex at all. If you follow certain rules and a method of thinking, it's not complex at all. So I'll try my best here to simplify it as much as possible for you so that it gets inside your head once and it stays forever. But before we get into Vlookup, we need to understand what is the dollar referencing. So we've seen this dollar sign a couple of times in the other videos as well, where I told you that I'll be looking at this a little later. So this is now the time to look at the dollar sign. We'll get into 11.1. I'll zoom in a little. So what we are trying to do here now is we are trying to create a formula where equal to this into 10% discount. We're trying to give a 10% discount. When I do this and I press enter, I get the discount value, which is 10, which is 10% of 100. Simple. When I copy the formula down, I get all the values. Now let's get inside the head of Microsoft Excel. A2. A is the column, 2 is the row. Now when I'm copying this formula down, essentially my column is not changing, right? My column A is not changing. My column B is not changing, right? I'm working vertically. Hence, here also it remains A, here also it remains A, and here also it remains A, and so on. But when I'm copying this formula down, my row is changing. A2 becomes A3, becomes A4, and so on. So if I copy this formula to the right side, it will essentially become B2. Why? Because A moved to the right side, that becomes B, and 2 remains 2 because the row did not change. Make sense? If you have not understood this very properly, try to listen to what I just said 3-4 times. Just rewind this and listen to it 3-4 times and you will get it properly for sure. Moving on. I'm going to delete this. I'll say equal to this into. Now instead of putting 10% manually, I'm going to click on this. That's fine, right? Doesn't matter. And I press enter. Now when I try to copy the formula down, oops, it did not work. Why? A, when I copy it down, will remain A, right? D, when I copy it down, will remain D. 2, when I copy it down, will become 3. So that way, when I copy this down, 3 becomes 4. So that becomes D4. Now this is a blank cell. It's pointing to a blank cell, right? D4 is a blank cell. Doesn't make sense. We did not want it to change, right? So again, I'll get inside D and 3. So D, when you copy it down, did not change, right? So you don't have to worry about that. All you have to worry about is this 3 because that is something that you don't want it to change. So the thumb rule is you put a dollar sign just before the part of the formula that you do not want to change. You put a dollar sign just before the part of the formula that you do not want to change. Don't think of it as between D and 3. No, it is before 3. Simple. Keep it straight. Before what? Before the part of the formula that you do not want to change. Simple logic. Now when I copy this down, the 3 does not change at all. So now it's pointing to T3 all the time. That's what a dollar sign does. Let us take another example. Here I have a number in this column and here I have percentage in this row. What I intend to do is multiply this by this. Sorry, I'll do that again. This by this. Correct? So I get the value 10. Now what my intention is, I should be able to do this as well as copy this to the right side, and all my corresponding values should appear. So essentially in this particular cell, what I should get is 400 into 15%. That is what I should get here ideally, right? So I'm going to delete all of this. I'm going to delete all of this. So I want the corresponding values. How do I do that? See, when I will copy the formula down, I don't want the percentage on top to change. Is that right? Now, where are my percentages? They are in the first row. The columns are different, but what is common between them is the first row. So I don't want this row number 1 to change. So I'm going to put a dollar before the row number 1. Let's try it out. Does it work? Yes, it works. Undo. Does this work? No, 115% is not 1.5. Something went wrong, right? So this has worked. So we'll forget about that. When I copy the formula to the right side, I don't want this I to change because all my numbers are in the I column. Correct? So I put a dollar before the I, not before the 2, because my numbers will change with each row. Now when I copy this down and I copy this to the right, boom, perfect. So this way I was able to create a dollar signed formula where I'm able to copy things to the right and down without having to change the references manually at all. One last example. It's a pretty similar example to what we did earlier, but just for practice. If this number is greater than this, I want to always compare this number with this. Then give me 1, otherwise give me 0. That's just an example. If I just copy this, it will not going to work because it's referencing to the blank value. So it's always giving me 1, but I have to fix this, right? Now essentially, I'll have to think of whether to fix S or 3, right? That's what we've learned till now. But when you are thinking of fixing only one particular cell, you don't have to worry so much. You can put a dollar both sides. It does not matter. It does not matter at all. You press enter, you copy this down, and it works. Everywhere it is now S3. Interesting. So now whenever you come across a very, very complex formula and you see this dollar everywhere, just ignore the dollar. See that this is S and 3. That's about it. Dollar S, dollar 3 is for the fixing part. Essentially the cell reference is S3 only. All right. With that, we have understood how to use the dollar referencing. Now let's get into Vlookup. So Vlookup. What are the 4 parts of Vlookup? Okay. I'm going to use very, very simple English words and then try to relate to the Excel words. Okay. The first is called based on what. Now this is not what Excel calls it. I am calling this. Okay. Based on what? Second is where. Third is output column number. And fourth is range, either 0 or 1. Please note this down somewhere. First is based on what, second is where, third is output column number, and fourth is range, either 0 or 1. Now in today's video, in this particular video, we will not be focusing on 1, we will only be focusing on 0. Alright. That's what you need to learn at this level. First get the 0 very, very correctly in your mind. Then you think about the 1. So we will not be covering 1 right now. We will focus on the 0. So let's go into 11.2. The first example that we are going to take is a very simple example. This is your data set. Only 5 rows of data. But whether it is 5 rows, 5 lakh rows, it does not matter. The logic is exactly still the same. Alright. So what we want is, as whenever I put Sarah here or I change the name, I want the vertical, oops, sorry, this is not vertical, this is department. I want the department and the salary to appear. That is what I'm looking for, right? So now how does it work? I will say equal to VL. I don't need to type the entire thing. I can just type VL and tab. It will take it up, right? What is the first thing? Based on what? So we are trying to find the department of who? Of Sarah. Which Sarah? The A column Sarah or this red Sarah? It has to be the red Sarah because we do not know among those 5 lakh records, where is Sarah? Right now you are able to see it on top because it's very visible, right? Because it's only 5 records. If it was 5 lakh records, you would not know where that name is. So I'm going to select this. So this becomes by based on what? So I'm going to find based on this particular Sarah, where? That's my second part, where? I'm going to find her here. Now mind you, this has to start with the column of the name column only. Why? Because that's the based on what. Alright. Comma. Output column number. Meaning what? Now we selected the entire data, right? From the point of our name, we selected the entire data. But what I'm looking for is the department and not the salary, right? So when you start looking at this, how many columns did you select in your data? You selected 3 columns. Essentially, your name becomes the first column, department becomes the second column, and salary becomes the third column. It does not matter if it is A, B, C or G, H, I or X, Y, Z, does not matter which columns. It is 3 columns, so name becomes 1, department becomes 2, salary becomes 3. Now I'm looking for the department. Department is 2, so I will say column number 2. Comma, as we said earlier, we are only going to focus on range 0 and not 1. So I'll put 0 here and I'll close the bracket and I'll press enter. I got Sarah's department. If I change this name to Varun, I get marketing. If I change this name to Leanne, I get HR. Interesting. Let's do it one more time. So I'm going to say VL tab lookup Leanne means based on this particular name, find this name here starting from the name column, comma. Now I want the salary column, which is 1, 2 and third column. So 3, comma, 0. Enter. So I got the salary as 2. If I change this now to Sukriti, the department becomes accounts and the salary becomes 3. Interesting. So go ahead guys, do this much first. Make sure that you understood this very, very well. Only then take up the next example. Moving on. Now what we are going to do is we are going to keep accounts as the base and try to find the salary. I know the example looks stupid, but this is for you to understand very, very well, right? So I'm going to say VL tab. I want accounts. Now my where will start from the department column. Why? Because that is my based on what. Very important rule. Whatever my based on what is, that has to be the first column of my where. Make sense? Comma. Now, normally people make this mistake because salary is C column, they make it 3. No. How many columns have you selected? You select only 2 columns, that is B and C, right? So B becomes 1 and C becomes 2. That's what you want. Comma 0. So account salary is 3. If I change this to marketing, becomes 4. If I change this to HR, becomes 1. Now the question that you have in your mind is, what about this and what about this? They didn't come at all. Whenever I put accounts, it gave me 3. When I put HR, it gave me 1. What about this HR 2 and accounts 5? So that's the rule of Vlookup. It always gives you only the top value and the order. The first value in the order. Alright. Now I'm just going to give you another example. If I type my name here, which is not there in the data, right? So that's why it gave me an error here. So when you get an NA in Vlookup, it does not mean that there is some problem. It simply means that this data is not there in the master data, right? So what you can do is, before the function, you can put a IfError function, and at the end you can put a comma and say not found. So now please try to understand, the Vlookup is part of the IfError function now. And if this Vlookup gives an error, means if this gives an error, then show not found. Clear? So if I give anything else, it gives me not found, but if I give a proper value, it gives me the value. Pause the video here, complete this much very properly by your own way. Try to do it 3-4 times and only then move on. Alright. We'll now create another example of Vlookup. We'll solve one more example where you see this actual data that you have, right? This is your actual sales data. So if you open your sheet in the sales data sheet, this is the only data that is there in the sales data. But now what I have been using until now is I have created all the other columns also from the referencing the other sheets. So essentially this was one sheet, SKU master was one sheet, city master was one sheet, customer data was one sheet, right? There were 4 sheets. So what I have done is from this data, I have referenced the other sheets and got all the remaining data. So I'm going to show you 3 examples of columns and then you have to start doing it yourself. All right. So I'll show you how to get the name. So we're going to say VL tab. Now name will be based on what is the customer name. So it will be based on the customer ID. So I'll say customer ID, comma. I'll go to the customer data because that is where this is. Now I will select all of these customers, right? So I can't do it manually like this. It's stupid to do it manually like that. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to say Control Shift down, Control Shift right. Now please do not go back to that sheet. Otherwise that linkage will break, right? So first press a comma. Now which column do you want as the output? You want the customer name, which is the second column, right? A1, B2, comma, 0. So please keep looking at the formula that is getting built up here and enter. Now, when I will try to copy this formula down, this reference should not change, right? Because that is my data set. My data set is only from A1 to E1701. It is not any other data set, right? There's no values below that. But if I try to copy this formula down, it will become A2 to E1702, A3 to E1703 and so on. So I need to fix this with a $sign. What you can do is to put the $sign very fast, you can press F2, select the part where you want to put the $sign, right? And press F4 on the keyboard. Boom. You directly get all your $signs. F4. Now when I copy this, done. Similarly, I can say a Vlookup, customer ID, comma, customer data from here till Control Shift down. I can directly press an F4 here also, it gets fixed, comma 3, comma 0 because gender is now third column. Now, I don't want to essentially create one more, okay? Because ideally you would do that, but I'll show you one more quick method. What I can do is I can even put a $sign here so that my B doesn't move when I copy this formula to the right side. See, if I directly copy this formula to the right side, it doesn't understand because now it's referring to C2 instead of B2, right? So I will go ahead and fix this also. Okay. Now when I copy this here, it is giving me male because it is referencing the data there, but giving me the third column as the output. So if I just make this 4 and I change the format to short date, boom, my date of birth is also ready. Interesting. Again, pause the video, complete this much, then move ahead. Next, city, VL tab. Now where will I get my city from? So again, if I'm not sure about it, let me go to city master and see. I have a city code, a city and a country, right? So now when I look at this, so the city I will get from the city code mentioned in the customer data. So what I will have to do is I'll have to insert one more column and first get the city code here, right? It could be city ID, city code, whatever it is called. So let's do this again, copy this here and instead of 4, let's make it 5 and I got my city ID. Now based on the city ID, I can get the city name. So I'm going to say Vlookup. Now instead of referencing anything from here, I'm going to reference this, comma, in the city master, Control Shift right, Control Shift down, F4 to fix it. A is the city code, B is the city name, that's what I want. So comma 2, comma 0. I get the city name as well. Similarly, I can fix the h, copy it to the right side, and just make this 3 to get the country name. Interesting. Like this, the SKU, the cost price, and the sell price you can get from the SKU ID column, from the SKU master. So I'm just going to quickly do that. You can observe if you want, or otherwise do it yourself. SKU ID, where from the SKU master, so I'll select this F4, comma, what I want is the name, so I get that, right? The cost price. Oops, there is some problem here. I made some mistake. I did not fix the A1. So I pressed F4 to fix the A1 and it's done. Now I need to fix this. So I put a $sign here. I copy this here as well as here. Here I just need to make it 3 and here I need to make it, oops, sorry, not 3. That is the inventory. 4 is the cost price and here I need to make it 5, the sell price. And I'm done. So these 2 columns have also come out. Is that clear? Everybody, is that clear? How to do this? All right. So this was all about Vlookup, the normal one that you would use. I'm going to give you a very different example, but a very, very useful example, which we will solve using Vlookup. Okay. So I have 2 lists of data. I want to compare the 2 lists, list 1 and list 2. I just need to check whether, so now I want to check whether each item in list 2 is present in list 1 or not. That's what I want to compare. Item in list 2 is present in list 1 or not. So I'm going to say Vlookup, find this item. So based on what? Based on this item, you find this item here, that is your where, comma. Now, how many columns are there in the where? Only one column, a column. So that becomes your 1. There is no other option. So you have to press 1, comma, 0. If it is present, it will get the value. If not, it will give you NA. So I can use IfError the way we did earlier and say not present. Now when I copy the formula down again, it works. Interesting. So guys, this video you will have to keep rewinding and seeing again so that the concept goes in your mind very, very properly. It gets set in your mind, and unless you do it yourself, don't expect that you will understand it fully. So please do it yourself as well. Pause the video here, complete this much, and only then go to something called as Xlookup. This is a new function in Excel which is considered like the father of Vlookup. They've made Vlookup very, very easy by introducing Xlookup. But this is not available in all the earlier versions of Excel. Hence, learning Vlookup is also as necessary. Xlookup. So what does Xlookup mean? XL tab. Lookup value. What do I want to find? I want to find the customer name based on the customer ID. So this becomes my lookup value, right? Clear? Comma. Lookup array. So I'll go to customer data and I'll select the customer ID column. Okay, I'll press F4. Comma. Return array. Mind you, I did not select the entire data, right? I only selected the customer ID column. Now in return array, you got to select what you're looking for in the output. So I'm looking for the name. So I will select this, F4. That's my return array. And close the bracket, enter. Simple. And I'm done. As simple as that. There is another option. After this, if you press a comma, it says if not found. So that's your if error. So if I say not found, and if I put some weird value here, it will tell me not found. So my if error has also become a part of the Vlookup, sorry, the Xlookup. Inside, it has gone inside Xlookup itself instead of having to put a separate if error function. Interesting? But the only thing is that this is not available in the earlier versions of Excel. So it is very important that you learn Vlookup also. Now here I can remove this dollar, right? And I can just put a dollar here. Now when I copy the formula, I will get the mail automatically. How? Because here it was looking at B2, which I fixed it. So it will always look at this customer ID. It will always look at it in the first column of the customer data, where in this column, right? So customer ID. But I did not fix this B, meaning I did not say always look at B column when you copy the formula to the right side. So this B became C here. So automatically started looking in the C column, which was your mail column. And hence this worked beautifully. If I copy this again one more time here without having to do anything, it works for date of birth as well. I can just do this and double click and I'm done. So that's your simplified Vlookup, which is Xlookup, available not in the earlier versions of Excel, unfortunately, but it's amazing to use. With this, we are done with the lookups that I wanted to cover here. There is also an Xlookup. That is just very, very similar to Vlookup. I don't need to teach you at all. You also don't need to learn from anywhere at all. Once you know Vlookup, Xlookup is just naturally, it will come to you. You don't have to do anything about it. Alright. So please guys, this particular video, you must practice at least 3 to 4 times to get it right into your head. This one is very, 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 very useful, but it takes a little while to get into your head. Once it goes in, there is no looking back. You will know it properly and you'll be able to apply it on any kind of data set. I've tried to make it as simple as possible. Please, whatever questions you have, leave it in the comment section below. If you like the video, please like it, share it, subscribe to the channel. And whatever you learned new, please let me know in the comment section. Anything that you still want to learn in this, please put it in the comment section. I'll try to create more videos on that too. Looking forward to see you in the last video as well, which will be on reporting. See you there. A lot of new stuff in reporting that you will learn if you've not been able to create automated reports. See you there.